In 1948, one American car was a full decade ahead of everything around it. It had a headlight that turned with the steering to light your way around corners, a padded dashboard, a windscreen designed to pop out safely in a crash, a built-in safety cell, and a place to brace before an impact. It looked like the future had arrived years early. And within a single year, it was gone, crushed not by a rival, but by a courtroom. This is the Tucker 48, the car that was too good, and the man who paid for it with everything. His name was Preston Tucker. And to understand the car, you first have to understand the man. Tucker was a born salesman, a dreamer, and a showman. As a young man, he had worked with the legendary engineer Harry Miller, building cars for the Indianapolis 500. He loved speed, and he loved machines, and he was never afraid of a big idea. During the Second World War, he designed a fast armored combat car. It was judged too fast for the army, but the turret he designed was so good it was used on aircraft and landing boats. Preston Tucker was, above all, a man who believed anything was possible. When the war ended, America was desperate for new cars. For years, the factories had built tanks and planes, not automobiles. Now millions of returning soldiers wanted to buy a car, and there were almost none to be had. The giants, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, were dusting off their old pre-war designs. Tucker looked at this and saw the chance of a lifetime. He would not build a warmed-over old car. He would build the car of tomorrow, today, and he would do it as an outsider, alone. In 1947, he revealed his dream to the world. He called it the Tucker 48. The public quickly nicknamed it the Tucker Torpedo. When the covers came off, the reaction was electric. It was long, low, and sleek when almost every other car was tall and upright. The engine sat in the back, an unusual choice for a big American saloon. Tens of thousands of people rode in, desperate to buy one. Here, at last, was something genuinely new. But the styling was only the beginning. What truly set the Tucker apart was an obsession almost no other maker shared: safety. Preston Tucker was determined to protect the people inside his car. In an age when a crash could be brutal, he engineered the Tucker to save lives. And the list of features he built in was decades ahead of its time. There was a strong perimeter frame designed to wrap around the passengers and absorb an impact. There was a windscreen made of special glass, designed to pop out cleanly instead of shattering into the cabin. The dashboard was padded and the control knobs were recessed, so no one would be thrown against sharp edges. And beneath that dashboard was an open, padded space he called the safety chamber. In the instant before a collision, a front passenger could dive down into it and be protected. No mainstream car of the era offered anything close. But the most famous feature of all sat right in the middle of the nose. A third headlight, which the world nicknamed the Cyclops Eye. When you turned the steering wheel past 10 degrees, this center light swiveled with you. It lit up the road exactly where you were heading, around the darkest corners. Ordinary cars would not widely adopt cornering headlights for another 50 years. Preston Tucker had it working in 1948. He even developed a seatbelt for the car. But here, the story takes its first strange and telling turn. His own advisors talked him out of fitting it. Their fear was that offering a seatbelt would suggest the car was dangerous, that a customer would see it and assume there was something to be afraid of. So, one of the great safety ideas of the century was quietly set aside to protect the marketing. To build a car this advanced, Tucker needed an enormous amount of money. He was one man taking on the richest and most powerful companies in the world. The banks and the establishment were not going to hand it to him. So he got creative and raised his money in ways nobody had tried before. He sold dealer franchises across the country. And he sold accessories, radios, seat covers, luggage for a car that did not yet exist. The idea was simple: buy your accessories now and secure your place on the waiting list. It was clever, and it worked. The money came in, and the dream stayed alive. But that same clever idea would soon become the very thing used against him. Because by now, powerful people were watching Preston Tucker very closely. An outsider, promising to shake up the whole industry, makes a great many enemies. And those enemies had far more power than he did. The attacks began in the press. A famous and influential broadcaster ran a story questioning whether the Tucker was real at all. Whispers spread that the whole thing was a scam, that the car did not truly work. Then came the blow that mattered most. The Securities and Exchange Commission opened a formal investigation into Tucker's business. They examined his fundraising, his dealer scheme, his accessories program, his every promise. In 1949, the hammer fell. Preston Tucker and several of his executives were charged. 25 counts of mail fraud, violations of financial regulations, and conspiracy. To the public reading the headlines, the message was simple and brutal. The great dreamer was a fraud, and his car of the future was a lie. The trial had not even begun, and the damage was already fatal. Think about what a charge like that does to a company selling the future. No one invests in a business being called a swindle on the front page of every newspaper. Tucker's backers panicked. The money dried up overnight. Suppliers grew nervous and pulled away. The great factory he had secured in Chicago, one of the largest buildings in the world, fell silent. He had built a car to protect human lives, and now he was fighting for the life of his company. By the time the trial finally opened, the harm was already done, but Tucker fought on. His lawyer stood up in court and did something devastatingly simple. They brought the actual Tucker cars to the courthouse and drove them. The cars that supposedly did not exist, that supposedly did not work, ran perfectly. The prosecution, for all its power, could not prove that Preston Tucker had cheated anyone. And here is the twist that history so often forgets. In January 1950, the jury returned its verdict. Preston Tucker was found not guilty, on every single charge. The fraud, the conspiracy, all of it. He was completely and totally cleared. The car had been real, the engineering had been real, there had been no swindle at all. He walked out of that courtroom an innocent man. But he walked out into ruin. Because an acquittal cannot rebuild a company that has already collapsed. The factory was gone, the investors were gone, the public trust was gone. By the time the world admitted that Tucker had done nothing wrong, there was simply nothing left to save. In total, just 51 Tucker 48s were ever completed. 51 cars, against the millions rolling out of Detroit every year. The most advanced car in America had been strangled in its cradle. Preston Tucker never built another car. He had a few more ideas, a few more dreams, but the great one was over. He passed away only a few years later, his name still clouded by a trial he had won. The story of the little outsider who tried to beat the giants ended not in triumph, but in silence. And the giant carmakers went quietly back to business as usual. But here is the thing about ideas. They do not disappear. Look closely at any modern car and you will see the ghost of Preston Tucker. The safety cell that surrounds you when you drive. The windscreen that gives way instead of cutting you. The padded interior. The headlights that now, at last, turn into the corner. Every single one of these was dismissed or ignored or laughed at in 1948. And every single one of them is now standard, quietly saving lives, every single day. In 1988, decades after his passing, the film director Francis Ford Coppola told his story on the big screen. He called it Tucker, the Man and His Dream. Coppola himself owned 2 of the cars and had grown up idolizing Preston Tucker. Suddenly, a new generation understood what had really happened. Not a swindler, a visionary destroyed for being too far ahead of his time. Today, those 51 surviving cars are among the most valuable automobiles on Earth. A single Tucker 48 now changes hands for well over $1 million. People queue simply to stand beside one. The car that was branded a fraud is now treasured as a genuine masterpiece. Preston Tucker was never a swindler. He was only too early and too bold for the world he lived in. He built the safest, most advanced car in America. And it cost him absolutely everything.